Hello everyone, it's Shannon here. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, we are going to create a pair of cards using Waffle Flower's carrying hands, stamps, and dies, and I'll also demonstrate the Eclipse technique with a stamped sentiment. Let's start by taking a quick look at some of the products we'll be using today. First up is the Carrying Hands Sentiment Stamp Set. This is from Waffle Flower Crafts. We'll also be using the Carrying Hands combo, which comes with the Carrying Hands stamp set, as well as the Carrying Hands matching dies in the back. We'll be actually using those praying hands. And then lastly, we are going to be using JJ's Rainbow Paper Pads. This is also from Waffle Flower Crafts. I'm going to use this sheet here. These paper pads are awesome. They are 8.5 by 5.5, and you just cut the sheet in half, you end up with 2 A2 panels. I've placed one of those panels inside my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp it with one of the sentiments from the Carrying Hands sentiment stamp set. I'm going to ink it up in VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then just stamp it onto the front of this panel. Now I'll just take this panel out and set it aside, and then grab a scrap A2 panel, something that you're not going to use. It doesn't have to be white really, just something that you can stamp on top of and see the letters. And a heavyweight, if it happens to be heavyweight, that cardstock, that's even better. So I just inked the sentiment up again and stamped the panel. Now I'm going to grab these praying hands die from the set, just center it over my sentiment, and then I will use a couple pieces of tape to hold that die in place and then run it through my die cutting machine. I'll then remove the tape, and then I'll actually toss the actual die cut, the praying hands. I'm not going to use that, but I'm going to save the panel and use that as a jig later. So now I'm going to take the praying hands stamps and stamp them onto a piece of Neenah Solar white cardstock. I'm going to ink these up in first antique linen and stamp them. Now this is a very light ink. You'll probably have to ink it up and stamp it a couple of times. I'm inking it up here and stamping it again just so it's a little bit bolder and I've got a cleaner, crisper image. Then I will clean the stamp, reposition it, pick it up with my MISTI, and now I'm going to stamp the hands in Tea-Dye Distress ink. Again, you might have to stamp it a couple times just to get a little bit bolder and more of a precise or clean image. Now I'm going to Copic color these, starting with the lighter hands. I have just 2 Copics picked out. I'm using E30 for a base, so I'm just coloring both hands with E30 first. Then I'll move on to E31, which is my darker shade, and start to color in that shadow kind of on the underside of the fingers, the thumb, and the palms and wrist. Once I get that shadow down, I'll go back to my lighter shade, which is E30, and kind of blend out over that darker area or that shadow area and just kind of create a nice transition between the two. Now I'm going to basically repeat this process for my other hands. I just have 2 different Copics picked out, starting here with my lighter shade for my base, which was E35. Then I'll move on to my darker shade, which is E37, and again just kind of color in the shadow, which is the underside of the fingers, thumb, palm, and wrist. And once I get kind of that shadow in place, I'll go back to my lighter shade, which is E35, and just color over where that darker shade is and to the lighter shade, just to kind of blend it out and create a nice transition. So after I've colored these, I went ahead and die cut them out with the matching dies. And now I am actually ready to stamp my hands. So I'm going to pop in that scrap that we die cut with the praying hands earlier, pop it into my MISTI. I haven't moved my sentiment at all. Then in the negative space, I will pop in the Copic colored praying hands. And then I'll simply ink up the stamp or ink up the sentiment and stamp it right over the hands. And by using the jig and by not moving my stamp and keeping it in my MISTI, that's going to ensure that the letters or the sentiment it will be stamped perfectly in the right spot over those hands, so I can line it up exactly where I want it, right in the center of this panel. So I just added adhesive to the back side of my rainbow panel, stuck it down to an A2 top folding white card base. Removed the backing on some foam adhesive that I placed on the back side of the hands, and now I'm just centering them over the sentiment and sticking them down. And here is the finished card. I'll hold up to the camera so hopefully you can get a good look at how this sentiment works. I really love this kind of subtle and very cash card, and that added element of that ellipse stamp sentiment just is a little bit of dimension and just a kind of a little bit of wow for this pretty clean and simple card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's cards and video. If you have any questions about the products I used, please check out the links below in the description. And if you like this video, I'd so appreciate if you consider subscribing to my channel and leaving me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.